a little more involved than the ones we did yesterday, because when I look at this equation, it does have more than one x. So just like if I said f of 3, you'd plug 3 in for both x's. When I say f of x plus h, I have to plug x plus h in for both of these. Alright, so then we have 3 times x plus h squared. How do we do the x plus h squared? Means we have x plus h times x plus h. So you have to FOIL that. If you FOIL, you get x squared plus xh and plus xh will give me a 2xh plus h squared. Okay, this one I can distribute my negative 2. So negative 2x minus 2h plus 4. So final step, if we distribute the 3, we get 3x squared plus 6xh plus 3h squared minus 2x minus 2h plus 4. So a little bit uglier, we have more terms. Do we have any like terms or anything yet? No. So that is my answer for the f of x plus h. B, when it says f of x plus h minus f of x, what do we do? Well, we subtract not just a plain x, but yeah. So we take the answer we just got out, and we subtract the original function. We need to distribute our negative. Then positive 3x squared and negative 3x squared cancel. Negative 2x and positive 2x cancel. Positive 4 and negative 4 cancel. So we get 6xh plus 3h squared minus 2h. Then the final thing is the answer we just got. And we have to divide by h. So I have to take an h out of every single term. Take one out here, one here, one here, and one here. So we get 6x plus 3h minus 2 for our final answer. Any questions there? So the next piece of this is to talk about a composition. So compositions, you saw it in Algebra 2. It's when you have that little circle, I might have said fog and golf, I think. It means you are going to do a series of operations. When you see f composed with g of x, another way that can be written is f of g of x. When you work these, you start on the inside. First you take x, you put it into g, you get that answer and you put it into f. Okay, order matters on these. The domain piece I'm not going to talk about today. We're going to focus on that one tomorrow. So today we're just going to talk about what a composition means. So let's say I gave you these functions. F of x is 2x squared minus 3, and g of x is 4x. So if I ask for f composed with g of 1, we have to start with the inside. Okay, if you don't like how it's written, you could also write it with parentheses f of g of 1. So you begin with g of 1. So if you go to function g, you put a 1 in for x, what do you get out? 4. So that g of 1 just becomes a 4. Now I'm going to put 4 into f. So 2 times 4 squared minus 3 gives me 16 times 2 is 32 minus 3, 29. What's different on B?
The opposite. You do f of x first and then gx.
So we start on the inside. F of 1. If you put a 1 into f, what do we get out? Then you put a negative 1 into g, we get negative 4. So you can see the order matters. Because I flipped the order, I got 2 different answers. So you do have to make sure you're starting with the correct function. You could also put into the same function repeatedly. If I ask for f of negative 2, so if I put negative 2 into f, negative 2 squared is 4 times 2 minus 3. Okay, so that f of negative 2 turns into a 5. And then if I put a 5 in, 25 times 2 is 50 minus 3 is 47. You guys do g composed with g of negative 1. So it means g of negative 1. If I put negative 1 into g, so 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. Now if you put a negative 4 back into g, you get negative 16. Does everyone understand which function I'm plugging them into and how I'm getting these answers? You're not limited to only doing this with 2 functions. We could have 3, 4, as many as we wanted. So I want to do a couple where I have multiple functions here. So this time I gave us f, g, and h. You just always start on the inside. So the very first thing I'm going to do is h of 1. Okay, so if I put a 1 into h, 5 minus 1 gives me a 4. So that h of 1 became a 4. Now I have to put a 4 into g. So 4 squared plus 4 is 20. Now I put a 20 into f. So 4 times 20 plus 3. You guys do B. This one. It might be helpful if you kind of show a little bit of work instead of trying to look at it and write down the final answer. Then I can't really tell where you went wrong. So if we start on the inside, first thing we have to do is g of 0. If you put a 0 into g, what do we get out? Next thing we have is f of 0. So if I put a 0 into f, what do we get out? Bless you. Alright, then if I put a 3 into h, 5 minus 3 is 2. Any questions there? So we're good with that? We're plugging in numbers? Just like yesterday with the addition and subtraction, first we started when we had numbers to evaluate at, and then we went to when it was still just in terms of x. So I want to do the same thing here. We don't have to have a number. We can have just an equation and ask you to compose those. So if I'm looking at this one, I've defined my three functions. If I ask for f composed with g of x, so another way we might write that is f of g of x. You start on the inside. Since I don't have a number, what is g of x? So just put in that formula. If I ask for f of x squared plus 1, what does that mean? You go to function f, and we are replacing the x with x squared plus 1. So we can distribute the negative, combine like terms, 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 minus x squared. Still have an x in our final answer. So B, g composed with h of x. So that's g of h of x. So start on the inside. H of x is 2x minus 3. Now we're going to function g. So g is whatever you put in, squared plus 1. So I'm replacing that x with a 2x minus 3. All right, what does it mean then if I have 2x minus 3 squared? Mm-hmm. Squared minus 6x and minus 6x is minus 12x. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9 plus 1. So 4x squared minus 12x plus 2. C. This one's h composed with f of x. So starting on the inside, f of x is 3 minus x. I'm putting that into h. H is 2 times the thing we're plugging in, so 3 minus x, with a minus 3 on the end. Distribute the 2, so we get 6 minus 2x minus 3. Combine like terms, so 3 minus 2x. Okay. Any questions on these? I want you guys to try the next one. So g of f of x. So f is 5x plus 3. Put that into g, so 6 minus 2 times 5x plus 3. Distribute the negative 2. Combine like terms, the 6's cancel, so it's just negative 10x. All right, looked like we had that one. Are we okay to move on? Okay. I want to see if I give you a function. So h of x is x squared plus 1 to the 50th. And I'm telling you, I got h by doing f composed with g. Okay, so when I did the composition, this was my answer. I want you to work backwards and tell me what the original f and g functions were. Now, I will say there's not only one option for these. Sometimes there are multiple correct answers, so definitely we need to talk through that. You just have to give me one possible answer. So if you think about this, when we do the composition, because I said f composed with g, g is the inside. So the inside is like, if I plugged in a number, what am I going to do first? Can you guys tell me what the inside would be of the x squared plus 1 to the 50th? Okay, would we agree with that, inside the parentheses? So, one option is to say g of x is x squared plus 1. Now think about what happens when we do a composition. We take the inside and we replace the x with it, right? So if I'm undoing it, it's essentially saying, okay, this replaced the x. So if I were going backwards, before it was an x squared plus 1, this was just an x. So function f would have to be x to the 50th power. And we can check that. If you do f composed with g, if I take g and plug it into f, do I get what we started with? Yes. Like I said, there are other correct answers. Could you have said g of x was just x squared? And if g of x is x squared, so think about x squared plus 1 to the 50th. So when you undo that function, I would be replacing the x squared with an x. If I did that, then function f would have to be x plus 1 to the 50th. Would this also work, that if you compose them, you get x squared plus 1 to the 50th? Yeah. You never have to give me multiple answers, but I just want you to understand, if two people are working a problem and you don't have the same answer, it doesn't mean somebody's wrong. Okay, there are multiple correct answers on these. All right, let's try some more. I want to find functions f and g such that f composed with g is equal to h if h is 1 over x plus 1. So this means when I did f of g of x, I got 1 over x plus 1. I need the original functions. G is the inside. That's the thing you're going to do first. If you plug in a number for x, what are you going to do first? If I said x is 5, what would this turn into? You did the 5 plus 1 first, right? Because you have 1, 6. So the very first thing I'm going to do is the x plus 1. So g of x is x plus 1. So to undo that, we think about if I took that out and put an x back in its place, what is function f? 1 divided by x. All right, you guys try the next one. So f composed with g, so that means f of g of x is equal to the 2x plus 3 to the 4th. So g is the inside. That's the 2x plus 3. To get f, you have to think about if I took that out and put an x back in its spot, f would be x to the 4th. Is that okay? All right. I think I want to stop here today. So I have not talked about the domains yet. You still have that Math Excel assignment. There are still some questions that you can't do. Anything asking about the domain of a composition, you can't do that yet. However, there is an extra assignment today. I know, it's rude. There is a handout posted on Google Classroom. That's what your top priority is. That one's due tomorrow. It is only over composition stuff. Okay, so just practicing this, because Math Excel didn't give me enough good questions to choose from, so I had to write my own. So, that handout is due tomorrow. The Math Excel, we have more time, because I'm not quite done with the section yet. So do the handout first on Google Classroom. Then if you have time, you can continue working on the Math Excel.